The Indus Valley civilization built the world's most advanced ancient cities 4,500 years ago. They had flush toilets, indoor plumbing, and a grid street system that would not be seen again for 3,000 years. Then they vanished. And we are only beginning to understand why. Indus Valley was not a small settlement. At its peak, it covered 1.5 million square kilometers across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. That made it 3 times larger than ancient Egypt. Its 2 largest cities, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, each housed 50,000 people. The total population of the civilization may have reached 5 million. Archaeologists have excavated only 10% of the civilization's known sites. The rest remains buried underground. The cities were engineered with precision. Mohenjo-Daro had a great bath made of brick and natural tar that remains watertight after 4,500 years. Every house had access to a covered drainage system. The main sewers were 1 meter deep and covered with brick arches. Wells were placed every 100 meters throughout the city. Nearly every home had its own private well and bathroom. The Indus people invented the first known flush toilet. The system connected to a sophisticated underground drainage network that carried waste out of the city. Rome would not have comparable sanitation for 2,000 years. But the most mysterious thing about the Indus Valley is its writing. Over 4,000 inscriptions have been found on seals, pottery, and tablets. The script contains roughly 400 unique symbols. It appears on seals that were used for trade across Mesopotamia. Despite 150 years of study, no one has deciphered the Indus script. The Rosetta Stone equivalent for Indus has never been found. If it exists, it is still buried somewhere in the Indus floodplain. Without a translation, we cannot read their laws, their history, or their religion. An entire civilization's inner life is completely silent to us. The Indus Valley began to decline around 1900 BC. The process took 300 years. Archaeologists have found evidence of earthquakes that shifted the course of the Gagar-Hakra River, which supplied water to hundreds of settlements. Climate data from Arabian Sea sediments shows the monsoon weakened dramatically between 2200 and 1800 BC. Rainfall dropped by 30%. The once reliable river system that sustained 5 million people began to dry up. Cities were abandoned one by one. The population migrated eastward toward the Ganges Basin. The writing system disappeared entirely within 2 generations. By 1700 BC, the world's largest civilization had vanished. Its people dispersed into small farming villages across northern India. They never built another city. Now a second lost civilization. The Nabta people built the oldest known astronomical calendar in the world. It predates Stonehenge by 1,000 years. It was built in the middle of the Sahara Desert, which at the time was a green savanna with lakes and grasslands. The Nabta constructed a stone circle in southern Egypt around 5000 BC, 3,000 years before the first Egyptian pyramid. The circle is 4 meters in diameter. Its stones are arranged to mark the summer solstice sunrise. The alignment is accurate to within 1 degree. The Nabta knew that the summer solstice marked the beginning of the rainy season. They depended on that knowledge to survive. These people built their calendar from massive stones weighing up to 2 tons each. They transported these stones across 100 kilometers of what is now empty desert. The site also contains 5 lines of standing stones radiating outward from the central calendar. These lines align with the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. The builders also carved underground chambers that align with the Belt of Orion. This is the same star alignment that appears in the shafts of the Great Pyramid of Giza 3,000 years later. The connection is not fully understood. The Nabta developed cattle worship 2,000 years before Egyptian civilization existed. Burials at the site include cattle skulls arranged in specific patterns. The oldest known cattle burial in Egypt was found here. It dates to 5500 BC. This suggests the religious traditions of ancient Egypt may have originated with the Nabta. The same cattle worship appears in early Egyptian dynastic art. The Nabta disappeared around 3400 BC when the Sahara turned to desert. The monsoon belt shifted north. The lakes dried up within 200 years. The people migrated east to the Nile Valley. They may have become the foundation of pre-dynastic Egyptian culture. Third mystery. The Sea Peoples destroyed the Bronze Age civilizations of the Mediterranean in the span of a single generation. We have no idea who they were. The Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses III recorded their attack in 1177 BC. He described them as a confederation of peoples from the north. They came by sea and by land. A coalition of at least 5 different tribes. The Hittite Empire fell first. Then Ugarit burned. Then Mycenae collapsed. Cyprus was sacked. Within 50 years, every major Bronze Age civilization around the Mediterranean had been destroyed or reduced to ruins. The Egyptian inscriptions list their names: the Peleset, the Jeker, the Shikalesh, the Denyen, the Weshish. The Peleset are widely believed to be the Philistines of the Bible. But no one knows where the others originated. Theories range from the Aegean Islands to Sardinia to the Black Sea region. Archaeological evidence shows they used a type of ship that no existing civilization built. They had iron weapons when their enemies still used bronze. Their armor was different from anything found in Mediterranean tombs. The destruction was unprecedented. The Hittite capital of Hattusa was burned to the ground and never reoccupied. Ugarit's last king wrote a desperate letter begging for help that was never sent. The tablet was found in the kiln where it was being fired when the city fell. Mycenae's population dropped by 90%. Writing disappeared from Greece for 400 years. The Greek Dark Ages began. Literacy in the region fell to zero. Homer's Iliad, written 400 years later, describes a world that had already been lost. The Sea Peoples did not just destroy cities. They destroyed an entire way of life that took 2,000 years to build. And then they themselves vanished. No one knows where they went. Fourth, the Göbekli Tepe builders constructed the world's first temple 11,600 years ago. That is 6,000 years before the invention of writing. It is 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid. The site in southeastern Turkey consists of 20 circular enclosures. Each enclosure contains T-shaped limestone pillars weighing between 10 and 20 tons. The tallest pillars stand 5.5 meters high. The builders carved intricate reliefs of wild animals into the stone: scorpions, snakes, foxes, lions, vultures, and spiders. The carvings are executed with a level of precision that would require modern steel tools. The staggering problem with Göbekli Tepe is who built it. The standard timeline of human civilization says that organized religion, monumental architecture, and large-scale construction projects only became possible after the agricultural revolution around 900 BC. Agriculture allowed humans to settle in one place, build permanent structures, develop social hierarchies, and specialize labor. Göbekli Tepe was built in 9600 BC. That is 600 years before agriculture was invented. The people who built it were hunter-gatherers who lived in huts and moved with the seasons. And yet they organized hundreds of workers to quarry, carve, transport, and raise 20-ton stones. They built a ceremonial complex covering 300 meters in diameter. The labor required to construct a single enclosure is estimated at 500,000 person-hours. Hunter-gatherers with stone tools built a temple that would challenge modern construction crews. The site was deliberately buried around 800 BC. Every single enclosure was filled with debris and backfill. The pillars were toppled in a specific order, then covered with crushed limestone. The entire complex was sealed. This burial preserved the site perfectly for 10,000 years. Why they buried it remains a complete mystery. The German archaeologist who discovered the site, Klaus Schmidt, proposed that Göbekli Tepe was not just a temple, it was the reason humans developed agriculture. He argued that people gathered at Göbekli Tepe for religious ceremonies, needed to feed the workers, and were forced to domesticate wild grains to produce enough food. Agriculture was invented to feed the temple builders. Not the other way around. Fifth and most disturbing. The Yonaguni Monument sits 25 meters underwater off the coast of Japan. It is a massive stone structure that appears to have been carved by human hands. A massive platform 100 meters long and 50 meters wide with straight edges, 90-degree corners, and terraced steps. The structure rises from the seafloor in 5 distinct terraces, like a step pyramid. A 10-meter wide channel runs through one section with perfectly parallel walls. What appears to be a road surrounds the main platform. The monument was discovered in 1985 by a local diver. The formations include what look like columns, archways, and carved faces. One section resembles a human face carved into the rock, 5 meters tall. The stone shows tool marks consistent with quarrying techniques used in ancient Okinawan castles. The main platform has a T-shaped channel that resembles the drainage channels found at Okinawan castle sites on land. The blocks appear to have been cut and fitted together. Here is the problem. Yonaguni is submerged. Sea levels at the end of the last ice age were 40 meters lower than today. For Yonaguni to have been carved on dry land, it must date to at least 10,000 BC. That is before the end of the last ice age. The oldest known civilization in Japan dates to 2500 BC. Yonaguni would push Japanese civilization back by 8,000 years. Japanese archaeologists have mostly avoided the site. The government has not funded any major excavation. Some geologists argue the formations are natural, created by the current and underwater erosion. But the square corners, parallel trenches, and right angles are extremely rare in natural stone formations. The ratio of human-made features to geological features is something no one agrees on. These 5 lost civilizations share one thing in common. They all challenged the standard timeline of human history. Indus Valley had flush toilets 4,500 years ago. Nabta Playa built a working calendar 1,000 years before Stonehenge. The Sea Peoples collapsed an entire era in a single generation. Göbekli Tepe was built 6,000 years before the first pyramid. Yonaguni may rewrite the history of civilization in East Asia. The Indus script remains undeciphered. Göbekli Tepe has only 5% excavated. Yonaguni has never been properly studied. What else is buried under the sand or beneath the waves? What have we already lost? What have we not yet found? Which of these 5 lost civilizations shocked you the most? Comment below. Subscribe for more ancient mysteries and forgotten history.